And today I'll be teaching you all kidney disorders, which includes vascular disorders, congenital anomalies and obstructive uropathy. So we are starting with our today's presentation. So talking about vascular disorders first, what are vascular disorders? Nearly all disorders of kidney affect renal blood vessels secondarily. This includes majority ones are vasculitis, which is the systemic disorders, it affects kidney. Second is the hypertension, it is closely associated with kidney as it can be a cause and it can be a consequence of it. And third is the benign and malignant nephrosclerosis. So we are talking about the important ones here. So taking up with benign nephrosclerosis, what is benign nephrosclerosis? It is the sclerosis of renal arterioles and small arteries. So what happens when there is sclerosis of these small vasculature of kidney? The resultant defect is focal ischemia of parenchyma, which is supplied by these vessels, leading to thickened walls and narrowing of the lumen of these vessels. So the parenchymal effects of the kidney include glomerulosclerosis, chronic tubulointerstitial injury, producing a reduction in the functional renal mass. So at autopsy, what are the findings of benign nephrosclerosis? It is associated with, there are many factors which are associated with benign nephrosclerosis. The important ones are increasing age. It is seen more commonly in blacks than in whites, may be seen in the absence of hypertension. So hypertension here is not the primarily cause factor, but the hypertension and diabetes mellitus increase the incidence and severity of these lesions. Okay. So talking about morphology, on morphology we have gross findings and microscopic findings. So what do we see in gross findings? The size of the kidneys are either normal or they are moderately reduced in size, weighing approximately 110 to 130 grams. The cortical surfaces of the kidney have a fine, even granularity that resembles a grain leather appearance. So resulting in, because of the focal ischemia, there is loss of renal mass. It is mainly due to cortical scarring and shrinking. What do we see? So this is the gross microscopic picture of benign nephrosclerosis. Can you see? This is the cortical surface of the kidney giving rise to fine leathery grain appearance. This is the cortical surface, gross finding of benign nephrosclerosis. So what do we see in microscopy? The characteristic feature of microscopy is there is narrowing of lumen of the arteries and the arterioles due to thickening and hyalinization of the vessel walls. Corresponding to the fine surface granulation which I had showed are the microcapsular subcapsular scars with sclerotic glomeruli and tubular dropouts, alternating with better preserved parenchyma. So there will be alteration of the normal kidney and the affected kidney. In addition, what happens if the interlobular and arcuate arteries are involved? The characteristic lesions among these are medial hypertrophy, reduplication of the elastic lamina and increased myofibroblastic tissues in the intima, which combine to narrow the lumen. This particular change is known as fibroelastic hyperplasia, which often accompanies hyaline arteriosclerosis and increases in severity with age and in the presence of hypertension. So this is the microscopic picture of benign nephrosclerosis. All of you can see these are the two arterioles and this is the thickening of the walls leading to, this is the hyalinized walls, there is narrowing of the lumen. The lumen will be in a slit-like space. This is the narrowing of the lumen and this is the hyalinization and thickening of the walls. The characteristic findings of benign nephrosclerosis. So next we will take up with malignant nephrosclerosis and accelerated nephrosclerosis. So what is malignant nephrosclerosis? It is the form of renal disease which is associated with malignant / accelerated phase of hypertension. So as the name suggests, what happens in this particular phase? This can develop in a previously normotensive individual, but often it is superimposed on pre-existing essential benign hypertension, secondary forms of hypertension or an underlying chronic renal disease, particularly reflux or glomerulonephritis. It's a frequent cause of death from uremia, okay, in individuals with scleroderma, and it is typically seen in younger individuals and occurs more commonly in men and blacks. So we will discuss about the gross and the microscopic of malignant nephrosclerosis. So what happens in gross morphologies? The size of the kidney, it depends upon the duration and the severity of the hypertensive disease. So there will be this characteristic lesion is there, which is known as flea-bitten appearance. The literal meaning of flea-bitten appearance, all of you know, there is pinpoint small petechial hemorrhages on the cortical surface. And what are the cause of these hemorrhages? There is rupture of the glomerular or arteriolar capillaries, giving rise to flea-bitten appearance. So this is the gross findings. As I have told you, these are the fleas. The finding flea-bitten kidney, the name arises as if the kidney has been bitten by these fleas. So these are the gross findings. The size I have told you, it depends upon the duration of the disease. Can you see? These are the petechial, small pinpoint petechial hemorrhages on the cortical surface. This is the external surface and this is the cut section on the cortex, giving rise to flea-bitten appearance. This is due to rupture of the glomerular arteries. So what are the microscopic findings? So we will talk about the gross. There are two characteristic histological alterations in the blood vessels in case of malignant hypertension. What are those characteristic changes? First is fibrinoid necrosis of the arterioles. What is fibrinoid necrosis of arterioles? What will you see in microscopy? This appears as an eosinophilic granular change in the blood vessel wall. So what happens? It appears as an eosinophilic change and granular change in the blood vessel wall, and this represents an acute event. Fibrinoid necrosis is an acute event. This is very important, and it may be accompanied by limited inflammatory infiltrate within the wall, but prominent inflammation is never seen. So important thing here is it is an acute event, but the prominent inflammation is not seen. You can see mild inflammatory infiltrate, which is normal in this case. Second finding is within the interlobular arteries and the arterioles. What happened there? There is intimal thickening. So within the interlobular arteries and arterioles, there is intimal thickening, leading to, there are two things which is happening here. First, there is proliferation of concentrically arranged smooth muscle cells. So first, there is proliferation of smooth muscle cells. Second, there is fine concentric layering of collagen and accumulation of pale staining material. So there is this alteration. There is proliferation of smooth muscles which are arranged concentrically, and second, what is happening? There is concentric layering of collagen, leading to onion skinning because of its concentric appearance. So the characteristic finding, the microscopic characteristic finding for malignant nephrosclerosis is onion skinning because of its concentric appearance. This lesion is also known as hyperplastic arteriolitis. It correlates well with the renal failure in malignant hypertension. When this lesion develops, it indicates poor prognosis. So these are the microscopic pictures of these two lesions which I have just told you. So in malignant hypertension, there are two histological patterns. What are those histological patterns? The first one I have told you is fibrinoid necrosis. Can you see? This is the fibrinoid necrosis. This is the afferent arteriole, and there is this afferent arteriole ka fibrinoid necrosis. This is the acute event with less of inflammation. The second is the hyperplastic arteriolitis / onion skinning. I have told you what is onion skinning. Can you see? There are two things which are happening. First, there is proliferation of the smooth muscle cells, and second, what is happening? There is accumulation of the concentric collagen. So this characteristic thing is onion skinning, and this is the fibrinoid necrosis. Both are the findings of malignant nephrosclerosis. So next vascular disorder affecting the kidney is renal artery stenosis. So a few words about this lesion. What is renal artery stenosis? So the most common cause of renal artery stenosis in 70% of the cases is occlusion by an atheromatous plaque, which is at the origin of the renal artery. So important thing is this lesion more frequently seen in men, and the incidence increases with advanced age and in patients of diabetes. So in patients of diabetes with advancing age, we must think about renal artery stenosis if the patient has history of cardiac illness. Okay, so what happens, I've told you the cause is atheromatous plaque, which is present at the origin of the renal artery. Plaque is usually concentrically placed and it is superimposed. Thrombosis often occurs. So the second type of lesion leading to stenosis is so-called fibromuscular dysplasia of the renal artery. So first is the plaque and second is the fibromuscular dysplasia of the renal artery. Both will lead to renal artery stenosis. So what happens in fibromuscular dysplasia of renal artery? It is a heterogeneous group of lesion and it is characterized by fibrous or fibromuscular thickening and may involve the intima, the media or the adventitia of the artery. All of you know there are three layers: intima, media, adventitia. So it can involve any of these layers and there is fibrous or fibromuscular thickening. So these lesions are thus subclassified into, depending upon which layer is getting affected, they are subclassified into intimal lesions, the medial and the adventitial hyperplasia. However, the media is the most common. Next, this is the picture of fibromuscular dysplasia of the renal artery. This is the transverse section of a vessel and this is the picture of elastic stain. So all of you remember, this is the lumen of the vessel and this is the intima, this is the media and this is the external elastic lamina and the outermost layer is the adventitia. So can you see the lumen is becoming stenotic and the media shows marked fibrous thickening and this is the elastic stain. Okay. So next vascular disorders we have is thrombotic microangiopathies. What are these thrombotic microangiopathies? These include microangiopathic hemolytic pneumonia, anemia, thrombocytopenia, renal failure and morphologically by thrombotic lesions in capillaries and arterioles in various tissue beds, including those of kidney. Now, what will you see in peripheral blood? So, in cases of thrombotic microangiopathy, the peripheral blood finding plays a very important role and it gives you a clue to the diagnosis. So, important thing is fragmented red cells, also known as schistocytes, which will be found in the peripheral blood smear, and these are the important clue to the diagnosis of thrombotic microangiopathy. Unlike DSE, what happens here? These disorders are generally associated with normal coagulation time and normal or only slightly elevated fibrin split products. So the important thing here is how do you differentiate thrombotic microangiopathy with DIC? In thrombotic microangiopathy, there is coagulation time will be normal or there is slightly raised fibrin split products. There are two forms of thrombotic microangiopathy. First is hemolytic uremic syndrome, second is thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura, TTP. So these are the two forms of thrombotic microangiopathy which we will read on in the next slides. So we'll again classify the hemolytic uremic syndrome into two types. Okay? The hemolytic uremic syndrome is of two types. First is the typical and second one is atypical. The synonyms for the typical hemolytic uremic syndromes are epidemic, classic, DysApri positive. These is the most common and it is associated with consumption of food which is contaminated by bacteria producing Shiga-like toxins. Okay, and the second one is atypical hemolytic uremic syndrome. Okay, the hemolytic uremic syndrome, there are two causes. First is mutations, the inherited mutations of complement regulatory proteins. Second is diverse acquired causes of endothelial injury, including apple antibodies, complications in pregnancy, use of oral contraceptives and vascular renal diseases such as scleroderma and hypertension. Okay, the third one is TTP. TTP is thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura. What is TTP? It is often associated with inherited or acquired deficiencies of, this is very important, ADAMTS13. This is a plasma metalloproteinase. There is deficiency of this particular gene, ADAMTS13, a plasma metalloproteinase that regulates the function of von Willebrand factor. So talking about typical HUS first, also known as epidemic, classic and diarrhea positive. The most cases occur following intestinal infection. I've told you how does it spread. It is due to some strains of E. coli which produce some Shiga-like toxins. The most common strain which is associated with typical HUS is O157H7. It produces Shiga-like toxins, so called because they resemble those made by Shigella dysenteriae. So it is due to ingestion of contaminated food, drinking water, raw milk. Okay, thank you.